Hi, this video will be on my first person perspective assignment. It's based on the movie Misunderstood Minds. It's involving Nathan V, Lauren, Sarah, Nathan S, as well as Adam. Basically, these students all have learning disabilities, and it's about their lives in coping with learning disabilities. Basically, I will be talking about my own experiences with having an LD, the reflection I had on my parents and my family, as well as the students in the video and how I can relate to them having a learning disability myself. A quick overview, I will be talking about the misunderstood mind. So basically what it does is it goes into the life of all of these children who are dealing and coping with learning disabilities. It affects them all in completely different ways, just like everything else does, right? We all deal with things differently. Basically, Nathan V is very positive about his LD. I will get into more of that. Lauren had a harder time and understanding of her learning disability. Sarah was very subdued and kind of stepped away from her social life, being able to then cope with her LD. Nathan S was then put on medication, sadly, to try and cope with his LD, which I will then tell you about how that affected his life and his family's life. And then there's Adam, who sadly went down a rougher path with coping with an LD, kind of not understanding and being guided with an understanding about his LD and how it will affect his life. I will then start off about talking about myself. I was diagnosed with a learning disability when I was in grade 2. My parents caught on to my symptoms quite early. When I was a kid, I didn't like listening to books. I had no interest in reading, writing, or anything like that. When I was in the stream of kindergarten, my teacher then related to my parents, pulled them aside and talked to them about my development and how I was a bit delayed. In grade 1, it was more obvious as time went on. Back when I was a child, they didn't really hold students back within grade, even if they were not developed. So I moved along with my classes and with my grades, and ever since then, I've just found different strategies that worked for me, and now I have almost graduated my second program in college, which is very exciting. I do still have an IEP. I was diagnosed with learning disability, like I said, in grade 2. I went for the assessments when I was in grade 2 as well. I went for four different assessments. Then 3 years ago, I got reassessed before I went to Sheridan for business, advertising and marketing, to then see where my learning disability was at, and it turned out that my learning disability has not gotten better. It is in the exact same spot as it was then, except I've learned how to cope with it. The students in Misunderstanding Minds I can relate to because, for instance, Nathan and I are very similar. Instead of holding back with my learning disability, I then pushed through. I didn't want to use it as a form of not wanting to learn. If anything, it pushed me a little harder, knowing the fact that, I wasn't able to learn like everybody else, but I wasn't going to hold myself back because of it. Lauren, I found very upsetting because she didn't want to listen to others about it. She was very cold and didn't really want to understand the fact that she was going to learn differently. She didn't want to be treated differently, which is everybody's feeling when you're growing up. You want to fit in. You want to have those friends. You don't want people to see that you're leaving class when everybody else is staying in class. And I can really relate to that because I got taken out of many of my classes to go to the resource room and do certain testings and things like that, especially in elementary school. Not so much as I got older, but I remember when I was in elementary school, my friends would be like, Emily, why are you leaving classroom? And kind of things like that. And then in high school, I got removed from French courses and then put into a learning disability class, which taught me different things about coping with my learning disability and giving me some strategies, which I was very lucky and appreciative to be able to have that opportunity. Sarah was a different situation. She actually was a very social butterfly, and then it turned out that she then wanted nothing to do with her social life because she felt as if she was different. I know what it's like to feel different, and it's very hard. It's very hard in the family. It's very hard. It's very hard for a parent to hear that their kid is not going to learn or be like every other kid. And not necessarily looking wise or anything like that, because looking at somebody, you would never know they have a learning disability. But it's just understanding that they are going to learn differently. It's going to be frustrating. It was very frustrating for me and my family when it was time to do homework. I wanted nothing to do with it. I couldn't sit still. I just gave up. And I was very exhausted after a day of school because I'm overthinking. A learning disability is very hard to have because you're working against yourself when you're trying to learn, because you're not understanding the content. Your teachers sometimes don't understand the way you learn. So UDLs nowadays are great, because when I was a kid, the UDL was taught differently than it is now. UDLs are honestly the best thing. Universal learning is the best way to go about it, because not everybody learns the same way. And if I had more of that growing up as a kid, I think it would have made things easier for me. Getting back to Misunderstood Minds, Nathan S. Was put on medication, unfortunately, hoping that they would find a cure to his learning disability, and it just turned out that it necessarily didn't work out that way. There is no cure to learning disabilities, and people feel like, they will grow out of it, and you don't grow out of it. And I'm a prime example of that. I did not grow out of mine. My younger brother also has a learning disability. We have the same learning disability. There are many different types of learning disabilities that we are learning about right now in classes as well. Not everybody has the same learning disability. LD is a very generic word. There's many types of learning disabilities. The most common one is the one that me and my brother both have, which is communication. So my left side of my brain does not communicate to my right side of the brain. So basically the information, I can't transfer information very well. And when I take it in, it then soon doesn't sit. It then goes into its own little world somewhere in my brain. But unfortunately, things like that, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating as a kid to have it. It's very frustrating for the parents. It's very frustrating for everybody involved, kind of thing. Adam, unfortunately, in the movie went to not wanting to do have anything to do with the learning disability itself. He wanted to just then move along. He was diagnosed later on in life. He was actually misdiagnosed, and then he turned into drugs and other things that could have caused him to be in a lot of trouble, kind of thing, which can happen. I mean, everybody deals with things differently, like every day in life. We all deal with things differently. It's just very hard to understand kids in their own ways, you know what I mean? Everybody's going to deal with it differently. I dealt with it in a different way than my friends do, and friends that I know that have it worse than I do. My brother growing up had it a lot harder. So my parents, I know for sure, had a harder time understanding us, kind of thing. When it came to homework, it would be better if I helped my brother because I could relate to his frustration. Sometimes it was just you needed a water break, or you just needed to put it aside for a few seconds. It was those tiny strategies that I grew to know that helped my brother then work better towards, understanding a learning disability. One thing I would never do, though, is hold a student back or tell them that they have a learning disability, or, you can have a learning disability, but it should never be something that it holds you back, because in the end of the day, you're just going to be as successful if you power through it than somebody who doesn't have a learning disability. So if I could give anybody advice as to having a learning disability, I would say that push through. Do not let it hold you back, because in the end of the day, you will be able to just be like everybody else, feel the same, and if not better, because you've overcome something so hard and such a huge challenge that, you now can say that you've been there, done that, but it's not holding you back, and you're becoming very successful. So yeah, having a learning disability is very hard. It's hard on everybody, the family, friends, especially the parents, because like I said, when it comes to homework, when it comes to extracurriculum things, your child is kind of dealing with something that they can't even explain to you, because it's so frustrating. But all you can do as family, as friends, is support your child as much as you can. Don't hold them back. Push them as much as you think that they are capable of, because in the end of the day, they're just as much capable as somebody without an LD. So that is my first person perspective assignment. I hope you really enjoyed it.